Well, good morning. Welcome to Elevenses. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training. A few minutes late this morning. Usual problem. Somebody arrives just as I'm about to go on air. Anyway, here I am, and welcome to you all. Kevin's looking in, and good to see you, Kevin. Right. So, what have we got for you in today's show? Well, a fair number of stories, and now we have. Average speed cameras are going in for the Meon Hut area, which I'm sure will upset a lot of motorcyclists. A blazing Harley has burned down a US gas station. The long-running saga of the Boda Boda loan companies has now got to the stage where those loan companies are being summoned to talk in front of a government committee to explain their actions. And something that caught my eye, having been to Rarotonga after one of my New Zealand trips, a 14-year-old has been apprehended, and he's believed to be behind a record number of motorcycle thefts on the tiny Pacific island. In the Punjab, the appeal court has reversed the plan by government to supply motorcycles to students. That one has also been running for a while. We've got a date for the diary, Thames Valley Air Ambulance ride out on the bank holiday weekend coming. We'll have a look at the Pulsar Dominar, a baby tourer. And then in depth today, do we need the government review of dazzling lights? And having driven back late last night along the A303 and the M3, I'll give you my opinion on that one. Bo's looked in. Good morning, Bo. Nice to see you too. Right, so let's get on with the first of our items today. Now, I've just managed to get the photos up on screen. Let's try to do that before I go any further. As I say, not quite ready to go this morning for one reason and another, but bear with me and I will get there. Oh, God, what's happened here? The associations have changed. Oh, for heaven's sake. This is so frustrating. Every time I set Windows up to do what it's supposed to do, something changes, and in this case it is that Windows has obviously reset its associations. So the program that I open my JPEGs in this morning has changed. So just a moment, bear with me whilst I get that working. And I'm almost there. I just need to get that linked into the show itself, and we should be there. Right, okay, so there, what have I been doing for the last couple of weeks, or last week really? I'm back from the West Country. Now, I was running 2 presentations last week. Now, as I mentioned last Sunday, I did plan to have a recorded show ready to go out on Wednesday, but it was a combination of personal incompetence. I actually forgot to copy the script from my show to the laptop, but there was also a technical malfunction because I did have a backup plan, of course, for all this, which is a remote link that allows me to control my PC from the laptop wherever I am, but that failed because the PC rebooted, probably the same update which has just reset the associations of my JPEG files. So that was despite having updates turned off, and that killed the link, so I wasn't able to run the show. So effectively today's show is last Wednesday's with a few updates. So what was I doing? Well, the first thing is I was out talking to Cambridge advanced motorcyclists, and that was on Monday night, and the talk I delivered there was my talk on situational awareness, and that's actually the one I took out to New Zealand and the Shiny Side Up talks last year. Basically, the idea of this talk is to explain how it is we need to know what's around us on every second of the ride, some of the warning signs to look for when we're not situationally aware, and to explain how situational awareness is crucial in other industries where safety relies on knowing what's around us and what's going on, such as the airline industry. And that was the first talk. Then the second talk was to Devon's advanced motorcycle group, and that was my crash course presentation, which actually looks, you'll be glad to hear, at how not to crash. And the idea is to give you insights into just why things go wrong, even for competent and experienced riders. Now, both talks went down well. There were good attendances for both, plenty of interactions with both groups too, which is also good for me, because I enjoyed talking to people, but I enjoyed the debate which goes on after the talks even more in some ways, because it's where I get some insights into how people are responding to my talks. So just like my online posts, these talks are designed to try to deliver something a bit off the beaten path. I think most of us have probably heard quite enough of people talking about roadcraft over the years. That's one thing, but it's getting people thinking about what they know, thinking about what they don't know, and re-evaluating how they approach motorcycle riding. So that's what I was up to earlier this week. That's what was going on. So, of course, if you think your own riding group would benefit from a presentation, do drop me a line, talk to your organiser perhaps. Anyway, I have a selection of these talks. Don't forget, there's also Science of Being Seen, and I will be making an effort to do some of these online as well in the not too distant future. Now things have calmed down a little bit in my life. All right, okay, so moving on rapidly then, we have the weather. So what is going on in the weather forecast? Well, coming back from the West Country last night, fog was beginning to form in the area west of Salisbury Plain. Been quite a lot of rain there over the course of the day. We missed most of it where we were, but there was rain either side. And that did cause fog as the temperatures dropped. And today has started with mist and fog in some areas. Now, low cloud does look set to persist along some North Sea coasts and in the north of Scotland, but apart from a few showers along the western facing parts of the UK this afternoon, most of us should see a sunny day. So pleasant out there if you're on the bike. Once again, though, watch out for patchy fog forming overnight. Monday should turn mostly dry, warm, and with lengthy spells of sunshine once that low cloud and fog has burned off. A few isolated showers in the afternoon for western Scotland and Northern Ireland. Tuesday looks to start mostly dry and sunny, but heavy showers will build over Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England. Wednesday looks fine and bright to the west of the country, but wind and rainy weather will spread in from the east from across the North Sea. So, okay, on with the latest biking news then. What have I got for you today? Well, the first story, it doesn't seem to have been officially announced yet, and the government are still saying that no final decision has been taken, but an article last week in Daily Telegraph attributed to, quote, industry sources, unquote, suggests that the government is set to announce the date beyond the sale of new ICE motorcycles will be banned. Now, quick bit of history on this move to net zero. The Department for Transport consulted with the motorcycle industry, you'll probably recall, back in 2022. And they were proposing dates of either 2030 or 2035 for phasing out petrol-engined motorcycles and mopeds. And the 2035 date would have been in line with that for the end of sales of new petrol cars. But motorcycle interest groups have, as you are probably aware, they've pushed back against that date. The Motorcycle Action Group, MAG, they said the plan was unworkable and would, quote, terminate most British motorcycle manufacturing, unquote, though I would point out that, of course, most supposedly British bikes are actually built abroad. The body representing industry, the Motorcycle Industry Association, the MCIA, they said 2035 was unrealistic and could cause some manufacturers to, quote, review their place in the UK market, unquote, which of course ignores the fact that the entire EU is also moving with us. We're actually just simply moving along with the EU on this. So a reasonable argument from both organisations was that as of 2021 data, motorcycles and mopeds created just 0.5 of a percent, half a percent of road vehicle related emissions. So tackling motorcycle emissions might sound good for the green part of the industry, but in reality it does little. Now the story suggests that the revised plan has taken these representations on board, at least partly, and now sales of petrol engine mopeds alone will end in 2030. Whilst larger machines, those classified L3 or above in the list of vehicle classifications, they will be able to be sold till 2040, so giving the bigger manufacturers a little bit more time to shift their motorcycle design across towards clean vehicle types. Now, at the same time, the MCIA probably know they have been pushing the credentials of lightweight electric motorcycles as a green solution to pollution and congestion. And so this earlier cut-off for electric mopeds, 2030, that reflects their growing sales. Now, roughly half of all UK moped registrations last year were electric, which will probably surprise many people who still think that electric motorcycles are not going to happen. Now, the report suggests that the DFT views low-powered electric motorcycles as an attractive transport option that are, quote, dynamic, efficient and affordable, and too often overlooked, unquote. And quite frankly, if that statement is true, and I've no reason to believe it's not, it is something of a turnaround from the conventional sort of view of motorcycles as being dangerous and wanting them off the road everywhere. Anyway, last month, and again, this didn't get reported widely, ministers did extend the grant for plug-in electric motorcycles, under which riders can get up to £500 off models costing under £10,000, and that's now extended till April next year. But sales of larger electric motorcycles are lagging, partly because these motorcycles are still pretty expensive generally compared with some of the petrol engine motorcycles. I mean, their prices are not that dissimilar to premium price bikes. You know, sort of if you're looking at the price of a Zero or something at £17,000-18,000, you quite easily blow that on a BMW or a KTM. But partly, of course, because potential owners still point to range anxiety as a reason for sticking with petrol. So pushing the date back to 2040 gives everybody a bit more time to think about this, gives more time for the technology to mature, which I think is probably a good thing. Battery technology, there's a lot of interesting developments out there, but they're mostly at the research and trial stage rather than production ready. So I think it will give owners more time to get ready for the idea of electric bikes too. Right, okay, so that's interesting stuff. Be interested to hear your comments on that too. Now, something that would affect any motorcycle, petrol driven or electric, are average speed cameras, and it's been confirmed that they are going up on 2 major Hampshire rural roads. The 8 cameras will be installed on the A32 and the A272 east of Winchester, and the aim is to slow vehicles on these roads, specifically motorcycles apparently. And the move is largely in response to complaints about noisy speeding bikers who fitted illegal exhausts and who zoomed down the road. Donna Jones, the Police and Crime Commissioner, she says that £677,000 has been set aside for these cameras, with the money coming from fines garnered by speed cameras in other parts of the country. So it's a lovely sort of it's a lovely cycle, isn't it? You fund speed cameras with money from one speed camera and put a new one up, and of course that generates more money for other speed cameras. But if we didn't speed, it wouldn't be an issue. Hampshire Police say that targeted police operations in marked and unmarked vehicles will continue, including the use of high-speed police motorcycles to catch offenders. Right, rather more slowly, this Harley set fire to an Atlanta petrol station. The filling station in Georgia, it went up in flames after a bike that was being refueled set alight to a nearby car. The fire intensified, and as you can see, it spread upwards to the gas station awning, eventually reaching the main structure of the station itself. The Harley itself was completely burned out. The gas station owner apparently acted swiftly, shut off the fuel valve, and the Atlanta Fire Department tended, they were able to keep the fire more or less under control. Apparently it blazed for several hours, and the car was also severely damaged. Fortunately, no injuries, and everybody praised the quick response of the fire department there. Right, okay, so back to news. Now, over in Nigeria, I have been talking in previous shows about the Boda Boda affair. Now, these are the small sort of taxi bikes that are sold to riders to offer some sort of local transport. Now, if you've been following this story, this involves the mysterious disappearance of some of these motorcycles, which have been sold to the people who've bought them on credit. And it's been noticed that some of these bikes disappeared just after the loan has been repaid. And there's also been complaints about the almost immediate repossession within 24 hours in some occasions of bikes where the owner had defaulted on an instalment, particularly those owners who had almost but not quite repaid the loan. The bikes also had trackers on, and it's been questioned as to why access to those trackers was not made available after the machine was paid for, and even more crucially, why the vehicle logbooks for these machines were not actually handed over to the bike's owners on full repayment of the loans. There have been some even more alarming stories, reports of violence and intimidation towards riders. One rider who was apparently taking a holiday with his family was actually intercepted and had his machine confiscated, leaving the family stranded at the side of the road. Now, it appears the rider had not been informed that the motorcycle's use or his license under the terms of his hire purchase agreement was limited to riding within the Nairobi area, but obviously the tracker was used to locate his bike. So Nigerian Parliament has now summoned 5 firms: Watu Credit Limited, Mogo Motorcycles Kenya, Joy Inc. Group, 15 Minutes, and My Boda. These all sell these motorcycles to Boda Boda operators on credit. They have all been summoned to appear in front of the National Assembly's Finance and Planning Committee. And officials from the National Transport Safety Authority and the Insurance Regulatory Authority will also be questioned over the ownership status of the motorcycles, and questions will be asked about how the logbooks changed hands or didn't change hands, and the Insurance Regulatory Authority will be asked to explain the insurance compensation process. Right, over on Rarotonga in the Cook Islands, which I was lucky enough to stop off for a week's rest and recreation after 6 weeks more or less of travelling around New Zealand on the Shiny Side Up tour on 2019. We hired a little scooter over there, and apparently one 14-year-old juvenile is believed to be behind a record number of thefts of these sort of lightweight motorcycles. The individual is suspected of committing multiple crimes, including theft, burglary, and the unlawful taking of motorcycles. He appeared in a closed session court last week. Police said April recorded the highest number of reported stolen motorbikes in more than 6 years, with 16 being taken. The next monthly high was 15. That was back in September 2018. Now, apparently the suspect is known to police through multiple offences earlier this year. He was suspected of stealing a motorcycle last week, also believed to be behind this crime wave, one youth crime wave, and 2 of the stolen machines have been recovered. Now, meanwhile, in Lahore, the High Court has put a stop on the Punjab government plan to supply up to 20,000 motorcycles to students. Now, originally, if you've been following this story, because this one's been going as well for some time, the original proposal was to supply electric motorcycles via an interest-free scheme. But last week, the Punjab Chief Minister, Maryam Nawaz, announced the launch of a free motorbike scheme for girls only, encouraging parents to trust their daughters and allow them to take advantage of the initiative. The scheme ditched the commitment to electric motorcycles too, citing battery theft and low mileage as the reason. Now, I didn't have time to run that particular update. That was due to go out in the show. Before there was actually a legal challenge to this decision to provide provide these conventional petrol engine motorcycles. And so that was almost instant appeal. Astonishingly, the court actually almost instantly ruled on it as well, and they promptly blocked this move. So the court has actually directed the government to come up with a new greener policy, emphasising that students should be encouraged to use public transport and not their own individual motorbikes, and telling the government that providing buses to schools and colleges would actively reduce traffic congestion. So, right, okay, Kevin says, the traffic, oh, I've still got that banner running, haven't I? Let's turn that off. Traffic cameras enhanced, lower limits also introduced, can make some of the roads less challenging and or enjoyable when complying with new limits. Noise and antisocial riding, I'm with you. Yeah, I mean, the problem's been for years that the 272 has been seen as a racetrack by a lot of riders. It's one I tend to avoid. It's a lovely road, I will admit, but the way that some riders use it is quite crazy. Right, okay, anyway, don't forget, if you are enjoying the show, do subscribe and like. Just do that usual thing, hit the buttons, support the channel. Only takes a moment of your time for you to like this webcast. You can do it right now while you're listening to me talking about it. All this helps other people discover my content, and don't forget to tell people about Elevenses too. Just share the link to your riding buddies. I'm sure they'll find something interesting sooner or later on one of these shows. Right, okay, if you fancy a day out, then if you're in the Thames Valley area, then there is the Ride Out for Rescue event to look forward to on Sunday, May 26th, which is, of course, the next bank holiday weekend. The funds raised will go directly to the Thames Valley Air Ambulance to keep it flying. It's been operating 25 years, apparently, and since it first rescued someone, it's reckoned around 35,000 people have been assisted. That's a fairly remarkable number, actually. On the day, what will happen? You'll be taken out on a 25-mile ride on a loop from the headquarters in Stokenchurch in Buckinghamshire through the Chilterns, and it is lovely countryside around there because it's an area I use regularly for training because it's so beautiful. You'll pass RAF Benson, where the helicopter's based. I'm not sure if you'd like to get to see it, but keen biker and pilot Alf Gasparo, occasional contributor here as well, he told MCN, as a charity, our missions are funded solely by generous donations. By signing up to our Ride Out for Rescue, you get to enjoy a scenic ride around the Chilterns, and you get a special 25th anniversary commemorative patch. But you'll also be helping our charity bring hospital level care to people when they need it most. I hope to see you there. Now, pre-booking is recommended. There's a minimum suggested donation of £15 per rider, £5 plus if you bring a pillion. You can turn up on the day, but if you register on the day, they're asking for an extra £2.50, presumably to help pay for somebody to sit there and take your names and addresses and all that kind of thing. The group ride will depart at 11:30 following a safety briefing, so make sure that you get there in good time. There will be site catering, I believe, both before and after the event, but don't quote me on that. And if you do want to turn out for that, then the place to go look is here, and where you can find out more about the event. The link is just going up now in the description. There it is. I've just seen it go up on Facebook. Right, okay, so on to talk about motorcycles now. Back in the 1980s, I spent several years zipping around the southeast of England on an XBR 500. If you don't recall those, it was a sort of 44 horsepower single 4-valve radial overhead valve system. It had quirky looks, even quirkier handling, I will admit. It wasn't a quick machine by modern standards. 110 on the clock would have been absolutely flat out. It was much happier at sort of 60 to 70 miles per hour, but it didn't really seem to matter particularly when I was riding it, since it had that sort of punchy power delivery of a single cylinder. So it got the bike moving pretty quickly up to road legal speeds. It was also capable of delivering around 65-70 mpg, which was made it pretty nice, perfect for courier work actually. And all told, the bike was, it was a good all-rounder. It was quite capable of doing a solo dash to the south of France with all the camping gear needed for a long weekend at the Bol d'Or, for example. Now, a couple of years later, I did get hold of an NX 650 Dominator. It was a slightly different design. It was a taller adventure bike styled machine with a 150cc bigger, slightly less revvy version of the same engine, pretty much the same output though, with a sort of bigger, bouncier suspension, and that was quite fun to ride too. And ever since I, that bike passed away, I've really quite had a hankering for another single. But those I've tried, the BMW 650, I've ridden several versions of that over the years. I've never taken to it. Various KTMs as well. I've also ridden them, not really gelled with those, particularly as I really dislike orange motorcycles. So there's not a great deal of choice, which means this particular machine actually caught my eye. Now let me just show you that. This is not a Kawasaki, despite being sort of a Kawasaki colour. It's actually made by the Indian company Bajaj. Now, Bajaj, you'll recall, are Triumph's partners in the 400cc project, which has seen the British manufacturer launch and sell out, I believe, 2 neat little single-cylinder machines. Now, some disparaging people who have said that it's just an Indian bike with a Triumph badge on. It's not. There's been a lot of R&D gone into the Triumph from Triumph into that design, and hopefully some of that's crossed over into Bajaj's own design. So this bike with what I would say looks vaguely like a Versys, really, doesn't it? It's actually the Dominar 400. So it gets a 673 single-cylinder liquid-cooled motor, healthy enough power output, 29.4 kilowatts, 40 PS. It revs to 8,800 RPM, so go revs a bit for a single. 35 Newton meters of torque, that comes in at 6,500, and it's all delivered via a 6-speed gearbox with a slipper clutch. Now the bike does get a fairly basic LCD console. If you look closely, you can see there's a sort of an additional little display built into the top of the tank there as well, which gives you a bit more detail. I'm never entirely fond of tank top displays because you have to look down away from the road towards them. But it gets full LED lights, upside down front forks, radially mounted front disc caliper, and dual channel ABS, and as it's designed as a lightweight tourer, there are a host of other accessories, including taller screen, the hand guards, there's an engine bash plate, USB charging port, crash bars, rear carrier, and a navigation stay, which you can mount your choice of GPS on, and you see somebody's using their phone on this one. There are even, quite a nice touch here, 4 bungee straps tucked away under the pillion seat. So I can't tell you whether this machine will appear in the UK, though I seem to remember that Bajaj have said that they are ready to move into the European market. But quite honestly, I'd be quite happy to have one of those parked at home. As I've said before, the Indian manufacturers really, really upping their game from the admittedly cheap and cheerful sort of air-cooled 125s and 150s that they were building just a few years ago, and they're now coming out with bikes which are pretty much loaded with as much tech as the latest Japanese and European machines. Right, okay, now before I go on with the next item, I just want to remind you about May's special offer, half price online coaching. Basically, for just £20, you can get a 60-minute online coaching session on topic of your choice, or you can pick one of my topics. So why would you want to take online coaching? Well, the most obvious reason is that you're too far away from me to take a course of practical on-road training. The second reason is that you can stay warm and dry in the comfort of your own home. You can do it in your own time. The weather's improved remarkably at the moment, but the forecast, there's still storms floating around in the forecast. And of course, the third reason is that it works. And as I said, the other day. Patricia said, I can safely say I was much more in a state of mind to take in information and comments than actually after a ride. At home, you can sit with a cup of coffee, no distractions except cats, take notes, go through video footage at a time to suit. So what I will say is this is some of the most carefully thought out training available in the UK. As well as being an experienced rider coach, I'm also a fully qualified e-tutor. So each session lasts around 60 minutes. I'll answer any questions you might have too, and via a download link you'll be able to review the sessions as many times as you like. So what are you waiting for? As I say, a couple of people have already taken advantage of this offer. Why not join them? I think you'll be surprised at just how effective the technique of online learning actually is. Right, so there's the link. And that takes me to, whoops, that's the wrong line, our in-depth item to round off the show. And the question I'm asking today really is, do we actually need laser lights on vehicles? Now, if you feel blinded by oncoming headlights when you're actually out in the car or on the bike, you're not alone. And the Soft Lights Foundation is calling for a ban on what it calls blinding headlights, circulating a petition with more than 41,000 people. And they are complaining that headlights are getting brighter and the result is more glare. Now, they quote government collision statistics that show that since 2013 there have been an average of 280 collisions a year where dazzling headlights was said to be a contributory factor, which is a quite astonishing number actually. 6 of these crashes have resulted in a fatality per year. So what are we actually looking at? Well, the problem is that the recent RAC survey, they found that of 2,000 drivers, 89% think at least some headlights on cars are too bright, 28% think most headlights are too bright. And of the drivers who thought that lights were too bright, 91% say they get dazzled when driving, 3/4 say dazzle happens regularly, and I'd certainly put myself in that category, and 85% believe the problem is getting worse, as I do. Now, around 2 in 3 believe some headlights are so bright they risk causing collisions, and 7% of drivers, of respondents in this survey, actually say they avoid night driving completely. Now, that's why the RAC is calling on the government to commission an independent study into the problem of headlight glare. Now, we all get more sensitive to badly aimed lights as we get older. Our eyes simply don't recover from dazzle so rapidly. But it seems there's a double whammy when it comes to LEDs. Not only are they much brighter, it's the light they emit, it's at the blue end of the spectrum, and apparently that causes more problems with the eye's ability to recover than the sort of softer yellower hue of the older headlights that were reliant on the halogen technology. So these super bright blue-white bulbs, they're great for picking out detail in the road, having ridden behind one, but the bluer light disables the night vision of other drivers around you to a much greater extent. And it can take 5 seconds, even more, to regain night vision, and that's bad enough. Think of the distance that people cover in that time. But the results are not limited to short-term dazzle alone. Being constantly blinded, having to recover from dazzle, actually enhances driver fatigue. It makes it much more tiring to drive, and when we're driving tired, we're more likely to make mistakes. So why are we having these problems with dazzling lights? Well, clearly some of it is education. Driving back last night, we went from daylight through twilight to dark, and there were quite a few drivers coming the other way on dual carriageways, absolutely resolutely using main beam, despite having traffic ahead of them in their own half of the road, so they were blinding those drivers through the mirrors. And of course there was a constant stream of traffic coming the other way, so they were blinding us coming towards them. And frankly, this habit is not only antisocial, it really is very dazzling when you're coming around a gentle right hand bend. If you think of the angles involved, it means cars coming the other way are actually lighting up your vehicle rather than the road in front of them, thanks to the angle. Now, if part of the problem's drivers not using their lights correctly, the technology itself is also coming under fire. Firstly, there is the problem with the increasing numbers of SUVs on the road. Because they have high front ends, they also tend to have high mounted lights, and that in itself increases dazzle, particularly in rear view mirrors, of course. Then there's the issue of speed bumps and the potholes, of course, that we know and love, where the sort of the sudden jolt of the vehicle can be dazzling as the headlights suddenly bounce up again. Something I didn't see mentioned, incidentally, in any of these reports on the problem is the effect of being dazzled by a blinding light which is bouncing off a wet surface. Even with correctly angled lights, that's going to be a problem. The super bright lights, real trouble on that one. Auto dip headlights have also been cited as a problem, since the vehicle using them can appear around a bend on full beam before the computer recognizes as an oncoming vehicle and then dips or re-angles the light. There are also adaptive lights. Now these use clever arrays of LEDs, and although I'm not fully aware of this technology because I certainly haven't got a vehicle which operates with it. What it does is it cuts out some of the LEDs and creates a sort of dark hole in the beam where it would fall on another vehicle. But as far as I can see, or not see if you take my meaning, the system doesn't seem to work well at a distance. It only cuts the beam when you're fairly close already, and by that time you're already dazzled, or when the beam is at an angle to the vehicle that the light is falling on. And it's not just the conventional sort of straight ahead beam on lights either. A couple of weeks ago, a car found a novel way of dazzling me with lights, and it wasn't even approaching from the opposite direction. In fact, it was at right angles to me. Now, what was happening was I was approaching a junction, crossroads, and I was slowing down since I wanted to turn right. And I was about 50 yards away, 50 meters away. That's the kind of distance where you really are making that final yes-no decision about whether anything's coming the other way, when an SUV appeared on my right, and it was indicating to turn out of the road into the road that I was already on. Now, the interesting thing was it wasn't actually pitch black. It was that sort of awkward twilight stage where you're able to make out most objects, but you are light sensitive. And what happened was, as this vehicle started to angle towards me, I was suddenly blinded by a sort of searchlight coming out of this thing. I thought it was a weirdly adjusted headlight that was shining straight in my eyes, and it was bright enough that I really had difficulty making out if there was anything coming from the opposite direction. So I basically had to abort my turn until I could actually see what was coming the other way, and that potentially would put me at risk from anything that had been behind me and that might have been expecting me to turn. Now, obviously, there wasn't anything because the car pulled out and turned towards me, and as soon as it was facing me, the light went out, and then I realized that what I was actually seeing here was a cornering assist light, and that's designed to flood the road with light around a corner. Now in this case it might have helped the driver, but it certainly didn't help me, because the light wasn't flat on the road surface. The light was sort of unfocused. It was just a dazzling light shining at eye level. To be fair, it's not just cars either. Modern motorcycles are being fitted with increasingly dazzling LED lights, and they are being misused too by a minority of riders, particularly those who mistakenly believe that more is better when it comes to day riding lights. Now, filtering against me as I was headed out on the A303 towards the West Country, some idiot was coming the other way, and he clearly believed that switching all his battery of lights onto main beam would be inducing a parting of the waves to let him through. And frankly, even in daylight, his lights were dazzling. Yes, I could see the lights. No, I couldn't see the bike behind them. Now, it's been suggested that improved lights do contribute to reduction in nighttime crash rates and a 20% reduction in fatalities, but without having looked at how that conclusion was drawn, reached from the data, my first thought would be that we would first have to look at the latest vehicles with the latest lights and see whether they have survivable crash protection. That would be my guess rather than it being the lights. Anyway, the RAC reports, to cut a long item short, they believe that a vehicle headlight design rethink is necessary, and I don't disagree with them on that front. But you know, the biggest question I would say is how can lights that cause dazzle to other road users get through the design phase when the manufacturers are actually putting the vehicle specs together? And frankly, even if the designers can't see the problems, if you see what I mean, it should be picked up by the type approval inspections. Why isn't it? I'd be interested to know what you have to say on that one. Kevin says, easy to blame new tech, redazzle, poor alignment, misuse of main beams, illegal aftermarket bulbs, all factor. Yeah, I wouldn't entirely disagree with that, but frankly, if you've got LED bulbs, you're not going to be fiddling around changing those very often. That is going to be as it comes in the car. If you've already got LED bulbs, you're probably not going to be upgrading them either. So I dispute the idea that the problem is badly adjusted and illegal upgrades, at least not in a vehicle which comes with these as original fitment. Yes, you can fit LED bulbs, and they are actually road legal for motorcycles as a replacement for halogen. They're not road legal for a car, but yes, you can put them in, and no, not all the bulbs are well adapted to work with reflectors. So there are issues there, but with new cars, which is, I think, the real problem, I don't think you can blame this on poor adjustment. I think this is basically a function of the design of the light, which has really not been thought through with respect to other road users. Right, anyway, that is it today. So just for the end of today's show, I just want to give a shout out to last week's supporters, which I have a list here. We have Paul, we have Wayne. Wayne purchased the ebook version of Survival Skills, which was jolly decent of him. Brian, Christine, Dibs, who also bought the Survival Skills ebook. Claire, Greg, who booked an online coaching session and bought Survival Skills. Mad Cockney, who's another one to book an online session. And also there is, of course, the regular contributor, Anonymous. But whoever you are and whatever you contributed, thank you mightily for your support. So don't forget, if you want to get your name up in lights, just become a supporter of Survival Skills over on Coffee. You can become a weekly or a monthly supporter, and you just need the QR code there. That will take you straight to the relevant site. Pop over there, follow the link. You'll find that there are thousands of better biking articles over there to read, and I do suspect it's probably the biggest item of any sort on the internet. So that is it for today. We do have a couple of quick comments. Kevin says fair point regarding some OE new tech, and Clive says cheers. Right, good to see you guys, and thank you for looking in again. That is it for today. Thank you for watching. Elevenses will be back on Wednesday at its regular spot at 11. I have no plans to be anywhere else other than sitting in front of the computer, so all being well, the next live show is Wednesday, so look forward to seeing you there. And then meanwhile, if you are out there on the bike today, make sure that you are staying shiny side up and enjoying the ride. Thanks for looking in again.